Hi, I'm Red Renchin, Technical Editor of the American Farriers Journal. I'm Red Renchin, Technical Editor of the American Farriers Journal. Hi, I'm Red Renchin, Technical Editor of the American Farriers Journal. I've been a practicing farrier for over 40 years, a member of the Horseshoeing Hall of Fame and the Anvil 21 Club. For this video, what we're going to do...
How long had you been a farrier? What was your career?
38 years.
38 years.
Yep.
And you didn't start in farrier yet. That wasn't your first career, as it were.
No. I lived in Cody, Wyoming, and got in trouble and was just coming back to Wisconsin for a short time. And when I was home, I needed a job. And I still remember the article in the paper that Red Renchin put in there, and it said, full-time, no experience necessary, call Red. And I'm thinking, well, how can you not have any experience and be a farrier? I did see some farrier work when I lived on a ranch in Cody, Wyoming. But I called him up, set an appointment to meet with him 3 o'clock the next day. I wasn't really planning on going there, but it was like 11 in the morning and I was driving back to my dad's house from my sister's house, and I noticed the road. And I thought, man, that's the road that Red lives on. So I'm just gonna drive down there and look. And I drove down there and there's his mailbox and it's an Anvil. And I thought, wow. So I drove in the driveway. I'm supposed to be there at 3 o'clock and it's like 11 o'clock. And this guy comes walking out the house with red hair. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is Red. He comes out with a piece of paper and a bunch of names on it and he says, Matthew? Like, no. Who are you? Mark. Mark? He looks on the sheet. Mark Ellis? 3 o'clock. I said, yeah, sorry, Red, I wasn't even planning on coming. And I told him about the street, and he says, well, Matthew's not here, so come on in. We'll give you the interview. And I talked to him for an hour, maybe, and I left. And then that night, when I got home, it was very, very late. I was staying at my folks, and my mom had a note on the table to call Red. Well, it's 3 in the morning. I can't call Red at 3 in the morning. So first thing in the morning, my mom yells downstairs, telephone. I get on the phone and it's Red calling me in the morning saying, you're hired. You're the one I want. And I'm thinking, why? Anyway, that's how it started out. I started like the very next day and we worked for an hour and I just started pulling front shoes and he changed it to, you know, he said, usually it's just the first week. You just pull in the front shoes the first week. And I started pulling hind shoes and I got yelled at. I'm like, why? Why? And he said, well, let's see you do that. And he stood there and watched me and he said, yeah, that's not bad. And so the first day I was pulling front shoes and hind shoes, and he had another guy, Jim Andrews. Red's working on a horse and Jim's working on a horse, and there's 3 horses in the cross ties. And I was supposed to be waiting, having somebody show me and watch me. But I watched them do it and thought I could do it, so I was doing it and getting yelled at right away day one. But that's kind of how it started. I knew nothing. Red asked me, you know, what do you know about this? And I said, well, hay comes in the front end and apples come out the back end. That's pretty much all I know about the horses. And he said, that's good because I want to teach somebody how to do this my way. So, and I was there for a week. I really liked it. He said, you're built right. You're good for this. You're good with animals. You're a good people person. You're going to be good for this. And so I ended up staying with him for 10 years. And then I finally went on my own because of him. He's the one who told me, you really should have done this years ago, but I couldn't get rid of you. And he's the one who talked me into going out on my own finally, and he helped me tremendously. Any issues that I had when I went on my own, he still helped me. Yeah. He was phenomenal. So that's how it started out. Yeah. I really knew nothing.
that's by design with Red. He didn't want that experience. Tell us a little about, you kind of talked about it a little bit. Can you go a little deeper?
Well, I don't want to make this sound bad for any people that went to the farrier schools. But when I was with Red and he hired another guy that just graduated from a farrier school, and the one guy, I don't remember his name, he was clinching a horse and Red was watching him saying, whoa, 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 what are you doing? That's not how you do this. And he looked at Red and he said, well, yeah, it is. I just got done with farrier school. This is how you do it. And Red said, whoa, wait a second. I don't care what they did in the farrier school or how they did it, but these are my clients and my horses, and this is how I want you to do it. And so he didn't last really long. It's not that they didn't get along, but I understand that's how he learned in farrier school, so that's how he was doing it. But Red wanted you to do it the way he did it. And so never again did he hire anybody that was from farrier school. He liked hiring people like me that knew nothing about it. Then the only way you learn is the way he teaches you.
Right.
And so that's how that happened.
And so how did he integrate you into, I mean, I know you kind of jumped right in, but how does he typically integrate new farriers?
Well, he starts you out and he sees how well you're doing. I don't want to pat myself on the back here, but he said you were doing great the first day, so you can start pulling hind shoes, and then started clinching. And then he was a phenomenal instructor. And I always felt bad because way back when I first started, he wasn't gaining anything by me being there because it was taking him more time to get a horse done. And he would have me, like, the hardest thing was when I started shaping shoes to the feet. He tells you how to do it, and then he says, okay, there's Oliver down there, go do it. And the amble's right next to him. And I go down there and you're banging on that shoe, and I'm thinking, man, this is not right at all. This shoe don't look right. And then finally, like maybe half an hour goes by, and he comes down and he says, how's it going? And I think I'm in trouble. I know this shoe isn't gonna go on there, he's gonna be mad. And he looks at the shoe and he says, yeah, throw that one in the garbage and go grab another one. I'm like, okay, grab another shoe. And he leaves, he walks away, and I'm like, whoa, Red, where are you going? He says, I'm working on the shoe down here. You get Oliver going. Oh my God, okay. So I try it again and I'm struggling again. And then he comes back and now he's watching me the third time. This is the third shoe. And he says, remember, you need to do this, then this, then this. I'm like, okay. So I go to start banging it and he says, no, no, no. Remember, first you do this, then you do this. And I said, well, that doesn't really make any sense to me. And he said, when you shape that shoe, you start from the toe, because when you change the heels, now you've changed the toe. So that's why your shoes are all beaten up like that, and the nails won't work, and you just got to start all over. And then he would say, okay, now just watch. So then I would watch him shape that shoe. He'd bang it on the anvil, go to the foot, and the thing fits right on there. And then he would say, okay, now you do that. And I'm thinking, okay, the other foot? No, this foot right here, same foot. And it took so long when you're first learning to do that. For me, it did. And he was so cooperative. I mean, he helped so much. Yeah. And then when you start to get the hang of it, then he would move you on to something more. Like when you first started nailing shoes, he put the nails in the back on, and you put the front nails on, because you got less of a chance of sticking a horse when you put the front nails on. And then when you start getting the hang of that, then he'll start having you do the ones in the back. And so eventually you moved on, and that's just how it went.
Yeah.
He was a phenomenal instructor.
How long does it take you to sort of progress?
Well, to be honest with that, it really depended on the time of the year.
Yeah.
in spring, when we started to get really busy, that was a lot different than late fall, when he had more time and less horses to do. When it was really busy, he had to keep going and we had to get these horses done. So later on in the fall, when a lot of the horses took off, went to Florida, and a lot of people are pulling the shoes on their horses, so he had more time, that's when he would take more time giving you instructions. And that's when you started doing more. So spring and summer, when you're very busy, you were just doing what you could do, and we'd have 4 horses in the cross ties, and there was 3 of us. It was Red, Jim Andrews when I first started, and then me. And then Jim quit, and then I moved up to his spot, and then we hired another guy, and that's how that went. So it's really hard to say how long, but when fall came, that's when I got really busy doing a lot more.
I see.
Because he had time to have me do that.
Did each of the apprentices, or I'm not really sure how he qualified you, his multi-farrier practice, but did you have specific jobs for each person who worked under Red?
Yeah, we did. The first horse, when we got there in the morning and put the horse in the cross ties, I pulled the shoes on the horse. While I'm pulling the shoes on the horse, the other guy that just started is unloading the truck and getting the crosses up and getting ready. So once I get the shoes off, now Red is ready. I put that horse in his cross ties and he starts trimming the front feet. Then I get another horse and I pull the front shoes and the back shoes. And the third guy that's just starting, I would help him learn how to pull the front shoes. Then once Red gets the horse done and the shoes shaped, burned on, he would just put 2 nails in them. Then we would switch the horses. The one I just pulled the shoes on now, he's trimming the front feet on that. The one he just finished, I'm nailing the front shoes on and clinching it. And by the time I get done doing that, he's got the front feet done on that horse, and now we're switching. He's doing the back feet on this one. And so we kept switching like that. And the third guy that was just starting, if we had to have pads cut, wedges, anything, he was in the truck doing that. He learned how to do most of that. And so you were constantly switching horses. I mean, we did a lot of horses in a day.
Yeah. So it's really a well-oiled machine. That you're just going through feet left and right.
Yep.
Yeah. For some, this might not sound like an important question, but was the one who was working on pads and stuff also doing the sweeping of the floor, or is that
absolutely?
Yeah. Now, how important is training to sweep up?
It's really important because it depends on the horse. Mm-hmm. There's some horses that you don't go behind them with a broom and start sweeping. And Red would always tell somebody, but Red didn't very often pick up a broom. It was the third guy. So when Red gets done trimming this foot and he goes over to the other foot, you sweep that up right away. And the reason it was important to sweep is because when you burn the shoes on, the floor has to be clean, because when a horse steps on it, that stuff is sticking on the bottom of the foot. And then you got to rub it off before you burn the shoe on. So Red was very, very strict on sweeping the floor. And that's what the third guy did. Oh. And even me, if I was done and got the shoes pulled and I'm waiting for him to flop, horses to flip, then I would sweep the floor. But you always had to let him know when you're going to do it. And you always had to let the horse know that you were back there. Oh. And Red would tell you, no. Certain horses would not. They'd turn around and look at you with the broom back there. Be good to stay away. Yeah. But they were all different. All horses are different. Just like in the winter, you could have, a heater on behind some of these horses, and some you can't. And just like in the summertime with the fan, some horses just don't want that fan behind them. So
now, how quickly you already had some horsemanship skills. How early in the process did Red start hitting on horsemanship, and what were the things that he taught about horsemanship?
Day one, he was very important with that, because horses are flight animals, and he always told everybody, beginners, you don't ever walk up behind a horse. You have to let the horse know you're there. And most of the horses that we worked on were fine. But Red was from day one very important with horsemanship, with everybody that worked for him. I mean, day one was important.
Yeah. How many horses are we talking about that were on Red's books?
Every year was different. When we had 2 trucks going, there was obviously more. When we just had 1 truck, there was obviously less horses. Right. But it also depended on the day. Sometimes we would go and meet with Joe Randolph, and she was the equine vet that we did most of the work with. And sometimes it might take you from 8 in the morning till noon or 1 to do 1 horse when you're doing a bunch of special work on that horse. So every day was different. There was some days we did a lot of horses, and other days we only did 4, 5, 6 horses. Every day was a little different.
So as working under Red, how often, or did you have situations in which the client was wondering why you were working on the horse and not Red?
Oh yeah.
How'd that turn out?
Yeah, really. That depends. In the beginning, there was a lot of customers that did that. They came and said, "Who are you and what are you doing?" "Red Renchin does my horse." And I would say, "Well, I work for Red." "Well, I still want Red to do my horse." And then sometimes there was a guy that said, "No, you're not touching him." And he would call Red, and Red would come over and explain to him. And some were okay with that. If I made a mistake on a horse, obviously Red was responsible. And I'm thinking, man, I'm in trouble. But Red said, "That's how you learn." But I'm in trouble because you made this mistake and I have to deal with the customers. And some of the customers were fine. Red said, "Trust him, I trust him, I'm sending him there, he can do it." And some of the customers never let anybody do their horse but Red. But most of the customers, once he explained things and said he is still responsible, I trust him, he can do it, most of them were fine with that. But there was a few that never let anybody touch the horse but Red. Yeah.
So when mistakes were made, how did Red handle those with whoever made those mistakes?
Well, if I did a horse on a Friday and I stuck him, and sometimes you stick a horse and they walk away and they're fine. But after a day, that nail is working its way in there and it was close and now he's dead lame and he gets a call, he's got to go out there Saturday or Sunday and fix it. So I get a phone call and I'm thinking Monday, I'm going to be in trouble when I get there. And you never were. He just explained to you what you did. And if you think it was close, you take it out. And you always call him if you think you made a mistake and let him know. I mean, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
He was a great guy and a great teacher.
Continuing education was a big deal with Red. And it wasn't just something where he went by himself. He brought you guys along and paid your way. Tell me a little bit about the importance of that, why he did it.
Well, to be honest, in the beginning, the first year he took us down there, and I'm sitting in the lecture hall, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I have no idea what these guys are talking about. And I really felt out of place. And Todd Gillis came with me that first year too, and we look at each other like, I don't know, I mean, this is crazy. I'm not learning anything here. So then after the first couple lectures, I'm talking to Red in the hallway. It's like, what do you guys think? I'm like, Red, I have no idea what he's talking about. This really makes no sense. What am I learning here? You paid a lot of money for me to come here, and I feel bad because I'm not really getting it. And he used to always say, just pay attention. Eventually, it will come to you. And when you have questions about something, then ask. Ask me, ask the guy that's giving the lecture when you see him in the hallway. You'll learn a lot of stuff in the hallway and just talking to other people. And he said, it's worth it for you to come here and learn because I know you're going to stay here and you're just right for this job and you will learn stuff here. And it almost seemed like 1 or 2 times down here, I'm like, Red, you're wasting your money. I'm not getting any of this. And then eventually it started to come around. the third time you're there and you're listening to a lecture, it's like, oh yeah, I remember him talking about that. And then it starts to make more sense. And then you talk to Red in the hallway or at the bar, having a beer, and that's when things really started to turn and make a big change. And Todd Gillis, the same thing. He still comes every single year down to Cincinnati and still sits in the lectures. And yeah, years ago it was completely different. But
For those who who might be in that situation now, how long does it take before you start? You're at the horse and you're thinking, oh, this is what. When does it start clicking there?
well, a lot of that has to do with who you're working with. With Red, every time there was an issue with a vet and they were taking radiographs, now when a radiograph's there, they take it, you can look right there and see it now. And Red would say, here, come here for a second, I'm working on a horse down there. And then he's pointing it out to you. And then you're starting to pick things up a lot. Years ago when I first started, they'd take radiographs, but you don't see them till the next day maybe. And even then, he's showing you and explaining and you're getting things figured out. And then he would always ask you questions. What's wrong with this here? I'm like, I don't know. And then he would explain it. And then 2 weeks later, the same thing would happen and he would come and say, hey, what's wrong with this now? And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I don't know, was that the same thing was 2 weeks ago? And he said, you tell me. And then you start learning, and that made a huge difference. And when we went to the lectures, a lot of times after, we'd be going out for dinner and sitting around just having a beer, sitting at the table, and he's talking about it. And you didn't really know what was going on. You kind of had an idea, and then he's explaining things, and then it comes around, and you're getting it. And sometimes I have no idea. And then afterwards, I'm talking to Todd about it, because we were always staying together. And he would explain it. I'm like, oh yeah, that does make sense now. Or vice versa. He would ask me, what was he really talking about? And because Red did a lot of stuff with the vets. A lot. And that helped picking stuff up.
Yeah, it's one of the things that's neat about those events where, it doesn't stop in the lecture halls, whether it's in the halls,
never.
You go to a restaurant or a bar or whatever, and you're just sitting there talking about whatever it was that you learned. And there are questions, and then having those, sitting in on those conversations with you and Todd, I've learned quite a bit. Yeah. And what did he mean by this? And then just listening to the two of you talk about it. It's such a rewarding and educational experience that Red started and just trickled down.
Yeah. A lot of things you pick up in the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots.
What was neat about Red was the enthusiasm he had for learning and education, and you touched on it too with the different products and stuff. I mean, he'd get giddy and almost ready to pop. It seemed sometimes because he would almost be vibrating with the excitement of it.
He did all of that.
Yeah.
And I was not like that in the beginning, but if Red sees something new, he'd get right in there and start doing it. Yeah. And then he'd say, come over here and try it. I'm like, no, all these people, I don't want all these people watching me. He's like, well, that's how you learn. Get in here and just do it. And he always did that.
Yeah.
Always did that.
Yeah. Yeah, he was one of the. I mean, a lot of farriers, I suppose, were proponents of it, but when the glue-ons started, and he seemed to be really excited about that, especially the stuff that Curtis Burns was doing, with hoof cracks and then the composite shoes and whatnot. That stuff like that just thrilled him.
Oh yeah. Tom Curl. Mm-hmm. Back when he was doing the stitching, Red is like, this is phenomenal, I'm gonna do this. And we got home with bad cracks, and he's doing that, and it didn't work out right. And he's calling Tom, and he didn't like it. And then he but he tried everything. He always tried everything. Did that ever work for him? Yes. Did it work 100% where he did it every time? No. He then went to where you're gluing the pieces on and you're putting the straw on there and you keep, but I mean, he tried everything. He always did. And it was hard sometimes to follow him because he's doing this and then all of a sudden he's not doing this anymore, he's doing this. Why are you doing this and not this? Well, down in Cincinnati, I saw this now and I like this better, so we're doing this. And every year, things change every year. They really do. Just like the shoes, you know. Yeah. So he tried everything, always.
Explain his engineering mind to counting steps, moving from the forge and anvil to the horse.
A lot of people laughed at him. When I first started, I couldn't believe it. When he's got the cross ties set up, he's got a forge on the front, on this side, and he's got a forge on the back on this side. So when he's doing the hind feet, he's not walking all the way to the front. And when he's working on the back feet, the anvil's right there, front feet, the anvil's right there. The forge was right there, but then when we started, the two of us, I would have a forge in the front, he'd have a forge in the back, so he would use my forge, and that way there's a lot less walking to do. And I couldn't believe that because I still, to this day, I see farriers when they have their forge in the back of their truck and they're way at the end of the barn. And they're down there and they get the foot trim and they walk past me and I hear them out and they're banging on the forge. And then they walk past me and they walk down to the horse's foot and they walk all the way back out to the truck and they're banging again and they walk past. And I would just say, hey, you know, if you want, you can use my anvil stand. It's right here. Most of the guys would be like, no, I'm fine. And pretty soon they're like, do you mind if I use it? Yeah, go ahead. And you'd be surprised how many guys now I have seen that take a forge and put it on a stand with wheels and they can wheel it into the barn. Yeah. Because Red's not walking far. Yeah. I mean, you get the front foot and the anvil's right there, the back foot and the anvil's right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was clever. He did that. When I first started working for him, he was like that. Yeah. And I remember seeing people walking so far. Yeah. That's how he was.
How were you mentioned earlier that he had a couple rigs. How were they set up for your daily work?
They were identical. So when Red took off with his truck and went this way and I went this way, I had two anvils, one in the front, one in the back, a forge in the back. He didn't want you walking in and out and around. It was much quicker. Both those trucks were set up exactly the same. Had the same shoes, the same everything. The way you cut the pads, the way you welded shoes, both trucks were identical, the same exact thing. Yeah.
Just improves efficiency.
Oh,
so you know exactly.
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah. When I started and I left and I went on my own, he told me right away, you got to do this. You've been doing this with me for 10 years. You got to continue to do this. And I did. Yeah. And it made a big difference.
How many steps did he usually set it up so that when you're going from the horse to the anvil and forge? Do you know? I mean, how many feet?
Not many.
No.
I mean, not many.
Yeah.
You're trimming the hind foot, you set the foot down, you take 2 steps and the anvil's right there. Yeah. The front foot, the same thing. Yeah. Now, if you got the anvil on this side and you're working on this foot, yeah, it's an extra step to go around to get to the anvil. And he was very efficient. It was, you know, he didn't walk down to the barn to put this horse away and then get another horse. That was me. Yep. And then when the third guy got hired, then it was no longer me. When I'm doing that, he's like, no, Mark, no. Send Tim down there. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, Tim, go fetch that horse. But that's how Red was. Yeah. Yeah, he was very efficient. And he didn't do much walking. Right. He sent other people to go get the horses.
Yeah. Yeah. Were the horses always caught or were you always in a barn?
Red was pretty strict on that. He called customers and said, we're going to be there Monday at 8 o'clock. If it's, you know, rainy and slushy and muddy out there, he's not working on muddy horses. I told you I'm going to be here at 8 o'clock. You don't bring the horse in at 10 to 8 and it's full of mud. You're not hosing them off and soaking wet. And no, he let the customers know when he's going to be there and the horses are in and they're dried off. Yeah. Yeah. He was That worked for me too. Once I started, it was the same thing. I'd get up there and like, they bring them in and they got mud up to their knees.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? No, not doing that. So it made a big difference.
Yeah.
I still see some farriers dealing with that, but
Yeah.
Red didn't.
No.
No.
No. Well, he wasn't afraid to confront that
Oh, not at
client
all.
about that stuff.
But he got along with everybody.
Yeah.
He explained to you, and he told you the day before, okay, it's going to be raining tomorrow, so make sure they're in. These are the 4 horses we're doing, or whatever. Make sure they're in.
Yeah.
And when you get there, they're in. Yeah.
How did he schedule? Was it a pre-scheduled? I mean, everybody knew that. All right, this one client is at 8 a.m. on Monday every 6 weeks or every 4 weeks or whatever. Or did he set it up before he left the barn?
Before he left the barn. When he did this horse, now some are different. Some are every 4 weeks. Some are 5. Most are every 6 weeks. Red does the horse. He doesn't even contact you and tell you. You don't have to be there when he does the horse. He does the horse on Monday and he'll be here 6 weeks from today and do it again. And that's just how he did it. He set all the schedules up. He did it himself.
Oh. All right. What about payment? Was
That, you'd have to ask Red that. I knew nothing about
you didn't know
payment.
if the check had to be there before he left, or
No,
or
he would send a bill.
oh, okay.
Yeah, he did do that. When he would get home every night, then he's got the bookwork to do, fill out all the bills and send them out.
Yeah.
And he did that when we did 2 trucks. And I came back, I gave him the list of horses that we did. And he would always look at it and say, there was 12 on there. How come you only got 10? Well, one died and one was gone. Oh, okay. But you had to explain to him why.
Right.
If there was 12 on there, you better get all 12.
Yeah.
And if you can't, you got to call him and explain why or whatever. Because that's the only way he can schedule. If you're way out, an hour drive away, you don't want to have to go back there tomorrow just to do those 2. So yeah, he was pretty strict on that.
Yeah. What about lost shoes? How did he handle those?
When I first started with him, he guaranteed his work for 4 weeks. A lot of farriers could not believe this. He guaranteed his work for 4 weeks. So if you have a horse that gets a sprung shoe, you call him and he will be there the same day or the next day, depending, to get that fixed. A lot of times if he was heading down to Illinois and there was a sprung shoe here someplace, then he would send me there first to fix the sprung shoe and then go do whatever the scheduling was. But up to 4 weeks, he never charged to get, those fixed. And that made a big difference, a really big difference. And he was always there the same day or the next day. And he would go there on a Saturday or a Sunday, a lot of times, to fix a sprung shoe or a lost shoe. And he didn't charge for a lost shoe either. Now, if you had a horse that had an issue that was constantly doing that, then that would be different. But if it just happened once in a while here and there, he didn't charge up to 4 weeks. He guaranteed his work up to 4 weeks.
When setting prices, what was Red's general method?
Well, after being with him for a couple of years, he talked to me about everything, and he always said the first of the year, January 1st, is when he raised the price for everything. And he notified all of the clients and told them that. So once he's been doing your horse for 2 or 3 years, he doesn't even tell you the price is going up. You just know that. And every year, the 1st of January is when he raised the price. How much? It depended on how much the price of nails went up, shoes went up, pads went up, gas goes up, everything. So, but that's when he raised the prices every year, January 1st, every single year, yeah.
So in his multi-farrier practice, he has up to 4 guys working for him. How did he set it up with you guys in terms of, was it a salary? Was it a percentage? How often did he give you incentives? How did he work that?
Paying us was hourly.
Hourly?
Yeah, and way back when I first started, we started at 8 o'clock, and he paid you from 8 o'clock until we got done working at 4 or 5 o'clock. Now, if I was done working in Oconomowoc at 4 o'clock, and I drove home, I didn't get home till 5 o'clock, I only got paid till 4 o'clock. I was like, well, I'm not working, but I'm still driving home. And then he changed that after a while too. And he always gave, I don't know about everybody, but every year at Christmas time, he always gave a phenomenal booster. And always thank you for what you did. And every once in a while he would call me if there was a horse that had a shoe off and it was near my house. Back when I had my own anvil and was started, he would call me, can you do that? And I said, absolutely. If I was home, I would go do it. I would do it on a Sunday, whatever. But he, like I said, he almost always fixed those shoes as soon as they came off. People didn't hardly ever have to wait. He very much did encourage me to go. And I was a little afraid to go out on my own. And actually, when I started, Red told me, you know what, I don't need you anymore on Fridays. I'm like, what? You don't? What do you mean? And he said, you're working for me Monday through Friday. You're doing your horses on Saturday and Sunday and back to work Monday. You work for me Monday through Thursday now, and you do your horses on Friday and Saturday and take Sunday off. So I started doing that. And then I got busier. And then I just did Monday through Wednesday. I took Thursday, Friday off doing mine. And then Red finally told me, you need to go on your own and if you need help, you let me know. And he actually convinced me to go out on my own. And he helped me tremendously. I didn't know how to run a business. I never knew nothing about that stuff. And he helped me with everything.
How are you today, Red?
I am very good. Never been better. In fact, you've made my whole day here.